Just turn up this music a little bit. Hello and welcome, guys. I'm about to start a painting of Amber, the Calico cat. We'll be starting soon. I got my colors, not all of them on my paint palette, but the ones we'll start with for the background. So welcome. I'm just going to be starting very shortly. Let me know how the music is. I always want to make sure it's not too loud, but you can still hear it. And let me know where you guys are watching from. This time it's not raining, it's not snowing, but it's bright and blue and sunny. Oops. Let's push this over a little bit. We'll be needing lots of palette room so that we have a lot of colors to mix for this one. And we'll get started in about 2-3 minutes, maybe a little less. Take these away. Hi, Jean. Am I reading that right? Gina, welcome from California. So you don't need a palette knife, but I think it makes blending so much easier. Plus you're not contaminating the other colors as much with a palette knife on a flat surface. And to access all the items, the class notes that we'll be covering throughout this tutorial, a list of materials, and this traceable and the reference, that's in the masterclass, which I'll have, I'll link down below. And we're gonna get started. I have, these aren't all the colors I'll be using, but the ones we'll start with is permanent red, orange, cadmium yellow. This is sky blue, And then this color, this beautiful teal, is my Bright Aqua Green by Liquid X. So that are the other colors are by Master's Touch paint. This is Golden Brand white paint. That's why it's so runny. I like the fluid white paint. So we'll get started. I like to always start with my background as best I can. This is a reddish orange background that's more dark in the upper left top area and then fades to a lighter, more pastel orange and yellow. And then we'll work on the connected part, which is the bandana. I'm gonna turn this. My computer's turning off on me, so let me shift it so it's not turning off on me. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna get started with my permanent red and orange. And we're gonna add a bit of white. So we'll mix up several colors, but we don't want this too pink. So don't add too much white to it. And because it's such a dominant color, we don't need a whole lot. We'll need more of the orange yellow or the vermilion colors that we'll be using towards the bottom of this side on the left side. And so next I'll mix up cadmium yellow and orange. I won't pull any of that color into this. This is a separate pile. And I'll add white to that as well. So if you're just tuning in, I have my orange and permanent red here with some white, just a little bit of white. And then I have my orange and cadmium yellow on this pile here with a bit of white. Such a beautiful color. Gosh, we're gonna have so much color in this one tutorial, and I'll talk a lot about that, choosing colors and placing it when you have a very colorful pet like a calico or a tortie cat or a brindle fur animal. You just have so many patches of different colors. And so my thought process is I know that I'll have orange, black, and white in this portrait, but only a little bit. There wasn't actually a whole lot. There's some orange here, some orange on the snout. If I had more orange, I likely wouldn't go with this red-orange background. But because I knew that I'd have a lot more black than those colors, I went with this color that will complement the blue-greens in the bandana. Okay, so we'll cover this in real depth. I'm gonna grab my size 10 angle brush, make sure it's clean and damp. And let's start with our less dominant colors, and then we'll blend in the more dominant. That way we're not having to use so much paint to overpower these lighter colors. So I'm gonna add that here, but I think I'll need to add a little bit more white to the bottom, just so I make sure that that is much lighter. So what I did was I added this orange yellow. I'm adding more white directly to the bottom of my canvas where I want it a little bit more faded, not so vivid. And then I'll go right into this color again as I work up. Wow, Rhode Island, that is so cool. Welcome, guys, everyone. Let me know where you're coming from. We have California, Rhode Island. I bet you can appreciate these vibrant tropical colors. And then I love to go, when I have a lot of color in the animal, I like to fade the background like I've been saying. So it's lighter here with more white, a little bit more vivid with a darker orange, yellow, and then I'll move in a little bit into the deeper red at the top. That way it's not clashing so much with the pink or the oranges in the calico fur or any kind of pet you're painting where you have lots of lighter browns and oranges. Okay, so here, I added a little bit here, but I can go straight into the red up here and see how I'm blending directly on my canvas. I want this to fade from that red to the orange. See, I'm pulling my brush strokes down, and then I pick up more of the red as I move towards the top where it's going to be more saturated. And you will likely have to add a second layer of this over top, depending on how much time you have. I'm gonna see what if I can manage with one. We'll see. Sometimes it dries and it looks a bit thin, and then you'll need a second one. I always like to add more layers anyway, because that really brings out the color. It's like a fiery color. Gets you all warmed up. So I'm going to continue on with this red orange up here, and then as well go back to this on this side. Okay, so it's not going to just all be red. And I'm going to try my best to get very close to that sketch where I can't see any white specks around it. I even went over here a little bit. That's good. That's really good, especially when you have a lighter color like this. So I am going to start grabbing some of that orange, blending that red and orange in the upper right corner. Hi, Kathy. Oh, welcome. So thank you for bringing that up, Kathy, because I actually want to explain that if you are able to access the reference, I'm going to turn this down. The reference of Amber the cat, she's actually a calico because she has more white than she does brown, orange, and black. And so that's a difference. A calico cat has more white, but a tortie is the blacks, the yellows, the oranges, and no white, little to no white. But I decided to add this bandana, which is not in the reference. And you can see under the bandana, she has a whole white belly. And so that's why she is a calico. And I'd love to do another tutorial on just a tortie where we have no white. And so we will be painting some white on her snout. But thank you, Kathy, for bringing that up, because it's can easily be overlooked for a tortie cat instead of a calico cat. So I'm going to add a little bit more white at the bottom here like I did here. This is reducing the vividness. I don't want it to be as vivid. I want it to be more pastel so that it contrasts with the vivid turquoise and blues of the bandana. So whenever you're choosing and placing color, you want to think of lightness. You want to think of saturation, like whether we have a lot of white in it or it's really close to the color that it came out of the bottle and it's really vivid. And then also the color, complementary colors. We're going to talk a lot about that here because they bring out the most contrast. They're best friend colors. They're the opposites that when put against one another, they are the most visually appealing. And so that's why we're going to add the turquoise bandana next. And I kind of skimped on the sides. Let me just make sure I get the sides before we move on. Plus, I'm sure some of you who are just entering this video would love a little bit more catch-up time. Welcome, Kimber. It's good to have you guys. I'm glad you can make it. I'm getting my sides. We just applied a faded background from our light white, yellow, orange to more darker orange to our red orange and back around. And now we're going to work on our bandana. I love the design in this bandana. It's really cool. It's just a little leaf, fern almost looking leaf design. So I'm going to grab my palette knife, make sure that's clean, and we'll mix up the base color for that. So the base is just the bottom layer, and we want to make sure that that is dry before adding the designs. So let's just mix up our bright aqua green with some of our sky blue. I actually want less sky blue than bright aqua green. And these are the complements of, so the complement of blue is orange, the complement of green is red. So right off the bat, we see our complementary colors. I think that should be enough. And now I'm going to, I'll grab my cat's tongue brush for this. One of my favorite brushes. So this is my size 8 cat's tongue brush. All my brushes are, I'll link them in the description. They're all by Arteza. They are my favorite kind of brushes. And I'll just paint this whole thing. So underneath this chin and around the furry neck area, we're going to paint this color in that bandana. I hope you guys are feeling well this morning. My poor husband, amongst all the things he's gone through, I think he's brought flu into the home. So he's actually right now in bed, very sick with the flu. Poor fella. So I hope you guys are staying healthy, drinking your teas and eating lots of healthy foods. Yay, welcome, Bonnie. Yeah, thankfully he got a flu shot. I don't know. I didn't, neither did my children, but that might make this flu bout a little bit less intense. Maybe. Okay, so I'm going to use the point of this cat's tongue brush to get into this little pocket here. And I'm going to be painting over some of that yellow orange. So in my 12-step pet portrait painting process, I like to do the background, the connected parts, so this bandana. But if it needs time to dry, I'm not going to just wait around for it to dry. I'm going to move on to the eyes, nose, and mouth. And then I'll go back to adding the design, the leaf design over top that. Yeah, and in my children's school right now, it's hand, foot, and mouth. That's what's going around like rampant in their school. So that'll be interesting if that comes home. I hear you can get that multiple times. You can't even more than once. But we can manage. Doesn't last forever. Okay. I really want that to be a good solid coat, so I'm going back with some paint into those like lighter areas with my brush this way instead of this way, because it seems to pull off paint that way. And that way, when it dries, we'll have a nice solid base layer for those beautiful leaf design over top. Okay. And for the next part, I will actually need to add black. So you keep working for those of you who are painting along. No rush. I'm just adding black. Do I want black here? Yeah, I'm going to put black right here. And I'll fold this over. But it's been lovely weather. We've been outside so much lately. Just very warm. Okay, so anytime you're also working with an animal with lots of color, try to first observe where that light source is coming from. Just consider that light source right off the bat. And that may also help you determine the focal point. So for instance, in this reference, the light is straight on, just straight on, kind of looks like the cat's looking by a window and there's lots of light straight in those eyes. And that helps me determine, I think I'll make those eyes the focal point. So when you can decide on the focal point, it can kind of help you plan and place color. So with that being said, I want to exaggerate the greens in those eyes to really draw attention to the focal point. So I'm going to use a really interesting green that's actually really unique. I'm going to mix up more of this bright aqua green in with yellow. And I'll add some white. So this is like a lime green. It makes such a beautiful, lovely color green. So that's bright aqua green with cadmium yellow. Okay, so I'm actually not going to dive straight into that and paint the eyes. I want to outline them first. And so I'm going to get mix up a dark gray with my black and white. I want more black because I want to fill in those pupils, make them really dark. But I don't really like to go in with just straight black. And these are big eyes, so it's a little bit easier painting big eyes compared to tiny little eyes. And we have more room to add lots of beautiful curves and colors inside the eyes. So for this, I'm going to use a very thin detail brush. I'm going to use my 2\0 liner brush. These are all Arteza. I'm going to make sure it's clean and damp and just add paint to the end of it. And this is actually dry for me. Hopefully it's dry for you. I'm going to outline the eyes with this dark gray and then fill in the pupil. So when you're creating a focal point, a way that you can draw people to that point is just by adding lots of detail, lots of vivid, vibrant colors that are contrasting with the surrounding area. So this black that's going to be around the black of the fur around the eyes is going to help do that. We're going to have a variety of different greens inside the eye. The fact that these are big helps to draw the viewer in. Let's turn this up. Oh. I need some kind of music on when I'm painting. Kind of sets the tone, sets the mood. Don't you? I just love it. I just love having relaxing music on, or a candle, or both. So I'm going to fill in those pupils. I forgot this little part. So there's a bit of the inner eye that I want to make sure I get with this brush, and on that side too. I don't know, I think I might have left that out in the traceable. There is a little bit on that left side, but barely. If you mess up on the pupil, it's no big deal. We can always fix it up. We're going to be adding the iris coloring around it, so that can help, and then we can always fix it up towards the end. Okay. Do you know what's helpful? I'll show you a little trick for painting pupils. Draw a line directly in the middle of the pupil like this, from the bottom to the top, and then work out from the left and right sides. I never taught that tip before, even though I've been using it. So here you are. Hopefully that'll help you if you have trouble painting pupils. That's if the animal has, you know, these almond-shaped pupils. Sometimes when they're really dilated, they don't take the shape. So we want symmetry, definitely with the eyes. We want symmetrical eyes. So just keep, like, I'll paint the one eye, but keeping almost like my other eye looking at that eye at the same time, so that I can compare and contrast and keep them symmetrical. Now the fun part about calicos and tortie cats is there's no symmetry. There is so much unevenness with their pattern, so you can pretty much almost make it up. You can look at the main parts of where the light parts, the oranges and the whites are on the animal, and you can really make mistakes and it still look okay, because that's the look, that's the characteristic of this kind of fur. Very asymmetrical, uneven pattern. So now I'm going to work on, so I'm going to let those dry, which will be soon, and then we can go in with this color and start adding our lights and our darks to it. But let's continue down to our nose. So what's interesting about this, normally I would fill in the pupils if it's much darker around the muzzle, but it's not. It's actually only dark on this side of the nose. Okay, so as I outline the nose with this dark gray, I'm going to only fill in this pupil, but not the left side, because we have a light orange brown underneath this nostril. Okay, and then I'll just continue around that nose. And working down, this is dry. Oh, it's still a little, it's kind of tacky. I'm going to work around those lips, being careful not to cut into the bandana. I put my paint a little thick. Very carefully with our line on the right side, because we actually have a lot of white. I don't want that line too thick because we have a lot of white on that right side, right above that right lip. Okay, on the left side. Okay, and let's move on to those eyes. I'm gonna wash up my brush and set it aside. I never like to put my detail brushes in my water. I'll leave my larger brushes in there, but not my detail brushes. That way it's not gonna damage the bristles. And I think that's why my brushes have lasted as long as they have, because I don't leave them face down in the water. All right, so next I'm moving on to my size 1 round brush. And I'm going to first, I think what I'll do is I'll just work on the right eye first, and then we'll adjust the colors and then move to the left with this color mixture of the cadmium yellow and the white and the bright aqua green. Okay, let's just fill in the whole eye with this medium value, and then we can adjust, while it's wet, the lights and the darks. Ever so carefully trying to get close to that pupil so I don't have any white. I went over it a little bit, but I can fix it with our black later. Okay. Now, when it comes to darkening colors, you can go in with black if you want. That's just fine. Or you can go in with its color complement. So, to darken up this top part of both eyes, this actually brings a sense of calm to the animal. Looks less like intimidated, threatened. And so I'm going to add some of this red in a separate pile with this green. And right above here, I'm going to add a bit of that. That's, if I didn't say it, that's the complement of green. And so when you add the colors complement to darken it, it can make it look, just add richer, more color to it. I don't want to bring it down too much, just on the top. And so I just washed off my brush, and here's a little trick. This is damp. It's still got water on it. I'm just going to blend it a little bit more between the areas of the top of the eye and where we added that green. That was with a clean, damp brush. All right, so let's pull in. So if you watch me, I'm going to actually pull in some of this bandana color. You can use the bandana color actually if you want. And that's with the sky blue and this bright aqua green. And I'm going to paint that along the right side of the pupil. Just a curving line from the top of that shadow down along the, down about to the bottom of the pupil. I actually want to bring in a little bit more darkness over to the right, a little bit more. Okay. I'm even gonna, so I have a clean damp brush. I'm gonna go back to that red-green. I'm gonna pull some of that down too, just a little bit. I washed off my brush again, and I'm gonna go in with my cadmium yellow and white, so it's really bright, and a bit of this color that we were just using for the medium value for the main color of the eye. and get that more white actually, and bring out the lightness around the left side of the eye of the pupil. I will also add this very carefully right here, right above where we have that dark gray outline, guiding it along the outside of the cat's eye. Okay, so I started at the top here, not at the very top actually, down a little bit further, and then brought it down and around. Now I want that to be very bright, so I'm going to add even more white and yellow. Just add another layer, another bit, so it gets real bright on that side. As well as down and around the eye. And just the smallest bit, just a little bit, to the right of the eye. Now in the reference, the top of the pupil is actually hitting that shadow. So I'm going to bring in more of that greenish red and the smallest bit of dark gray, okay, at the very top where we want it really dark. And I want that to hit the top of the pupil. You may need to bring up the pupil. I will actually, because of it being painted over when you applied the color of the eye. Okay, and for that I will go back to the brush we painted it with the liner brush. Just reshape it again. Oh, welcome Desiree, glad you could join us. Oh yeah, the top of the eyeshadow, you're right. It really is so important. It makes all the difference. Plus it brings a sense of calm to the mood of the portrait. All right, so you guys ready? We're not gonna paint that highlight over top of the eye just yet. We need to let that green dry, but I will, with a bigger brush, I won't use this brush. I'm just gonna mix up more white into my dark gray so we can get this little gap right here, which is more like a medium gray. So that's why I'm pulling in white into the dark gray. I'll add actually a little bit more. And then because it's difficult to mix with such a small bristled brush, these delicate bristles make it hard to mix colors, I will then paint it in with this liner brush. Now I'm noticing something, that my eyes might be out a little too far, and let's just keep working, keep that momentum up. It's very simple. We can just adjust, we can move that over a bit with our colors and then bring over the black if we need to bring them in more. But let's just keep working and kind of gauge that once we have the white highlight over top. And let's move on to doing the exact same thing to the left eye. It's a little too early to judge those details just yet. So go back to this beautiful like lime green, fill in the eye. You know what? After these eyes, we'll be able to work on the bandana to finish it off, which is what we want before we add the fur. How are we doing, guys? You doing okay? Welcome, Sandra. That's okay. Don't worry if you're late. Don't you worry. Glad you could make it. So I painted in the entire eye with our medium value. I'm gonna add that shadow with the green and the red, the color complements. This is permanent red with some of our color here. Just a little bit. You don't need to bring it down too far. This one isn't as shaded. Not as much. Okay, and then my little trick for that, you can blend that even better, those two areas, by making sure it's clean and damp, not dry, not sopping wet, and you just blend them together. And let me know if I'm going too fast, okay, guys? I washed off my brush and I'm gonna go in with a dark gray a little earlier than we did it before. And at the very top, that dark gray is gonna come down a little bit more and into that greenish red. And then I'll do it again where I washed off my brush and I'll bring it down to the top of that pupil area. Oop, that was too much water. Excellent. You know what, guys? I'm going to add just a little bit more on this side. As I'm comparing contrasting eyes, I'm seeing where I can bring things down and up. And on this eye, we have that same darkness on this right side of the eye and a little bit on the left. Okay, and that's where we added the, I'm just going in with my bandana colors because that's what we used from the top of this left eye down. And that should blend on your canvas with the lime green. A little bit more of that reddish green, can pull some of that into that too. At the top, not all the way down. In fact, you definitely don't want to bring it all the way down. I'm going to go back in with my light green and just kind of pick that up. Make it less dark on the bottom. And with that same bandana color that we used, I'm going to add the littlest bit to the top and curving on the left side of that pupil, but not down as far. And I don't want to make this more complicated for you, but I'm just going to also do a little bit more on this side. Just a little bit more on that side. Okay, I'm gonna wash off my brush. The colors, we want those lighter colors now with our cadmium yellow, a little bit of our lime green color, and some white. We want that real light to bring out those highlights now. And I will switch brushes. I'll go to my liner brush for this. This is my 2-back/0 liner brush. Okay, and around this pupil, blending into that lime green, I'll add that light value. Now I might make some changes to that right eye, like just a little bit more. I didn't add quite enough. A little bit more of that highlight on the right of that pupil. Okay, and then the same thing we did to that right eye where we added the highlights surrounding the eye. So on the bottom, let's highlight it. Definitely on this left side, or the left eye on the right side. I'll even bring down this highlight to it. See, to the left of that pupil, I'm bringing that highlight down to meet with that lower eye highlight. And you know what? I'm going to do the same on the right eye, okay? Add another strong layer on the bottom and then join that with the middle. There. So then I'll go back with my liner brush, back with my dark gray, and I'm gonna move these pupils in a little bit. And how I'm gonna do that is I'm just gonna make them, this one taller, okay? It needs to be up a little higher. And ever so carefully bringing that pupil to the right more. And same with this one. So those eyes come to the center. And a little bit more highlight on the bottom. So I just washed up my liner brush, going back to that highlighted area, just a little bit on the bottom here. Excellent. And that means we are not finished with the eyes, but we're gonna break from the eyes, let them dry, and move on to that bandana. Got my palette knife here. I don't want to go too fast for you guys, those of you who are painting. Please let me know if I'm going too fast. I'm gonna mix up the colors for this leaf design, which is so much fun. It's quite therapeutic, this design. I'm gonna pick up the, oops, wrong color. The bandana color with added white and more of the bright aqua green. Okay. So the bandana color was the sky blue, bright aqua green. We used that to apply a base. And now I'm adding the white to add a bit more lightness, even more contrast to this design. So we have this being light, this being darker in value, and then adding more lightness to it, and even more of a design, just to make it even more interesting. Now, acrylics dries darker, so I'm going to add more white to this because I really want it to be lighter over top that bandana. Now there's a easy technique to this, but all I do is I go in with my liner brush first. I've been using this one a lot for this painting, the 2x/0 liner brush. Make sure it's clean and damp, and all I'm going to do is create lines for the stems of the leaves and have them going in different directions but evenly spread out, and then we'll add the leaves over top. And even to that bandana, I won't see all of this leaf, I'll just see part of it. But I'm going to take this color we just mixed and have these lines curving, going off the sides of the bandana and going in different directions. And these are the stems for that leaf. It's like a fern. And you want to give it a good amount of space because of those leaves that are smaller at the top of the the fern and then they get larger leaves. So that's why you want to give yourself enough space. You don't often see cats in bandanas, but hey, it makes it a more dynamic, interesting painting with more color in it. You kind of more often see dogs wearing bandanas. We have our dogs wearing bandanas all the time. Okay, so I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll leave it at 6. I can add some more if I have more room. I'm going to set this brush aside and I'll pick up my round brush. Is this my round brush? Goodness, it's so much paint on it. I think it is. I think it's my round brush. And I'm going to wash it off. Whatever brush you feel comfortable with making these small little leaves with the same color. So decide where you want the top of the fern, and you want to start with smaller leaves and work down. And as you work down, you want to make those leaves a little bit longer. So I'll start with this one. Going to be short little leaves on both sides. And then ever so carefully as I go down this stem, I'm going to make them a bit longer. And I often, to keep my hand steady, will hold it, rest it on my other hand that's not working. So when painting these animals that have lots of color in them, just try and find ways that you can add a slight, not a drastic, but a slight color twist to it. So if you know you're going to add red to the ears and you have a red background, I wouldn't add red, just red to those ears. Just add a bit of violet to make it more like a magenta. Add a bit more white so it's a lighter pink contrasting with the darker red. Just a slight color twist. So adding a violet or adding a bit of yellow to the red or adding a bit of blue or what have you, without making a muddy color, that can really help you make it all work and be balanced in color. Okay, so I'm going to work on this one now. This will be the front of my fern, and then I'm going to work up, starting with my smaller leaves. That's why I also like to add a fade, because you don't want a bunch of orange and one. I mean, my goal is not to have an overwhelming amount of orange and an overwhelming amount of brown. I like to have it kind of balanced, and so that's why I can add in a different color that's kind of analogous, that blends nicely with another color and still complements the pattern in the animal. So I'm kind of twisting these leaves. It's a little tricky. You kind of have to slowly twist as you're parallel to this line. Another place that I like to add a small little twist of color is the nose. So maybe you can't seem to find it in the ears, but what about the nose? What if you make the nose blue or purple? Even green. I have an artist friend. He is so gifted. Robert Phelps, and I'll have to make sure I link his Etsy shop in the comments down below, but he is so talented with green. Like, he just seems to find ways to place green in the animal fur, and that's always been a challenge for me. Green is just hard to find I'm gonna add a little short one to the end. Other than the eyes, I'm just, for the fur, that is, the fur is where it's hard for me to find spots to put place green. But hey, you don't need to add the color if you don't like it. I seem to gravitate towards yellows and purples and pinks, oranges. Whenever I see an animal with lots of brown in it, I try to squeeze in a yellow and or an orange instead of just brown. Sometimes I'll replace the brown with those colors, but oftentimes I will still add brown. How are we doing? We doing okay, guys? This one, I don't really know where the start is, but I'll just actually have some of these leaves going off the sides of the bandana. That's how I'll start it. Okay, careful as you paint on the left, but depending on if you're lefty or righty. I am right-handed, so I'm definitely propping up my hand so it doesn't brush up against the designs I just painted. Now I notice my brush is getting too thick. My brush strokes are getting more thick than, you know, the leaves that I started with, and that is a good sign that it's time to wash your brush and make sure it's still damp. I'll add a small amount of paint to it and then get back to where I was working. It's good practice for when we paint the fur. I could probably fit like a little one right here. There's a bit too much negative space to my liking, and so I'll probably fit one there. And so for that, I'm gonna go back to my liner brush to, where did I put my liner brush? It's right here. And then I'll add that stem. Just a little one right here. Okay. And then I'll finish up the leaves on that one. I'll even have a bit kind of peeking behind the chin. So I started from the back, and so what I need to do is make sure I get shorter, get those leaves smaller as I work up. Excellent. I can't wait to do the ears because that's what we're going to add purple to make a magenta. I'm going to add more black. So we're going to do something unique because of how much black we have around this nose. I'm going to get painting the black fur, and then I'll work on that nose. And that's sort of my tip. My next tip is when you're working with an animal with lots of colors in it. I went through some of them. There's the brindle fur, calico, tortie, even other wild animals. And so I recommend the base color, the darkest base color. So in this case, it'd be a dark gray. And then you apply lots of the lighter colors around it. And like I said before, this is really asymmetrical. This pattern is hard to mess up because it's so uneven, and that there's patches of orange and brown and black and white. So this is really not that hard. And I'll start with mixing up a dark gray for the area around the nose. So I'm just going to pull it back into here. I want quite a bit of it because we have a lot of gray on this cat. I should say we have a lot of black on this cat, but I'm mixing up a very dark gray. And if you missed it, the beginning of this painting, I mentioned that this is actually a calico cat, because if you're a masterclass student, you have the reference, you can see there's a ton of white on this cat's belly. And so calicos have a lot more white than torties. They have very little to no white on their fur. So I'm going to work with my size 1 round brush for this, working with the dark gray. And let's just first work around that nose and then add white to it where it starts to get lighter. And that is actually right here on the right side of the nose. I'm going to paint up to the right, but not all the way because we have a gap of fur. So I'm going to leave just the smallest amount right there above the left of the right eye. I'm just really looking at the reference photo now. And we have kind of a triangle right here. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to block in the area with my dark gray where we're going to be painting the dark gray. Okay. So let's fill in this area with our dark gray, but I'll actually work on the outside, and then as I work in, I'll blend in more white to make it showing where that light is hitting the bridge of the nose. Okay, so here I go. I'm actually just going to add the smallest amount of white and blend it in. I'm doing vertical brush strokes because the fur is going vertical up along the bridge of the nose. A little bit more with white. A little bit more and working up and down. I'll pull in some more of that black on the right side, blending that in with the light gray. I'm going to pull up that black a little bit more. It's like right here it stops. I have my dark gray and I'm bringing it now to the right. then down all the way to the left side of that nose. And then I'll pull in more white. So I have white on my brush. I didn't wash off my brush. I'm allowing that to just blend on my canvas. Now I'm washing off my brush because I don't want too much of that light gray going to the left. I picked up more of my dark gray and I'm framing that nose. So it's like that. So the fur is going out like this, up and out. More in this, like this direction on the left side, more on the right side, it's pointing to the right. Okay. Now, because I have so little of the little lines, little strands of orange here, I'm just going to work down along the left side of the nose with the dark gray, okay? And we'll pick that up once it dries. I'll also work a bit of this dark gray below that left eye, stopping about here, because that's where over here it gets more orange and tan. And now I go in with my white and I blend in this little nook. I'll go back on with my dark gray. As I move to the left, I'll blend that so it's more dark, more getting a little bit darker on the left side of the face. Doing little circles for the blending. And how this marking looks on amber is it kind of goes like this. It goes out from the side of that eye, curves up, and then back down. And that's actually where we'll take the dark gray. I'm going to start working it underneath here. Okay, right under there. But I do want to frame where we have that orange patch. This is a rough little boxing in of that patch. Oh, see, I even didn't bring it down far enough. That's okay. See, this part goes down to right here. That's where we're going to add the orange tan. Okay, and then we can blend up from that. All right, so here's something we're going to do so that we don't lose this muzzle. If we were to paint the whiskers right now, we wouldn't lose it, but we don't have those yet, and we need to make sure this area is dry before doing that. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to my dark gray to lighten up this area and make a little guide for us. I'm literally going over this line with a lighter gray so that I know where that muzzle stops, so I can keep it symmetrical with the other side. And even when we apply the whiskers, we won't even see that line. Like, this is not a very, very light gray. It's just slightly lighter than the dark gray we're adding. And now I can start making this dark gray underneath it and above it, right in here and right below here. Just a little guide to help us keep things in proportion as we paint. And I'm going over, so here's another thing. I'm going to use a bumpy fur texture that are going kind of in that direction, but shorter. This is not a very long-haired cat. Over top this bandana. And I'll pull it to here. That little chin. We don't want any white specks left in our background or on that bandana. Oh, Kimber, I'm sorry about the eyes. We're gonna do more to the eyes. Those are actually not finished. We'll definitely add more detail to those. You're actually safer cutting in, and so there's not as much room left for where you have the orange area, so that you don't have to go back with your dark gray. So you can see as I'm painting this, I'm kind of cutting up even more into that area. And then we'll go and paint over it with the other colors for that patch. You know what I thought of? I haven't mentioned this in a little while, but if you were to paint this now and then repaint it another time, you've already gone through it. So you know kind of your mistakes, and you've learned a lot about the techniques. The second time will be better. The third time will be even better. And those lessons will be solidified in your brain. That is really what helps me, just repainting the same animal. Now we're working on the right side now. So we're leaving that for when we work on those other colors. We're still working on the dark gray. So let's box in where this dark gray marking is. So it actually sweeps underneath this nose all the way to the right side of the muzzle, just slightly leaving a bit of white. Almost looks like he's got a mustache. And then up and connecting it like that. And I'm really not making this perfect because it's still going to look accurate because of how, what's the word? Just scattered this patching is, this patchwork on this cat. Now I do see, I'm going to use a bit more white in with that gray again, because I see a highlight wrapped around this nose. See how I'm doing this? I'm outlining the right side of this nose by not going over that outline, that shadow in the nostril, just pulling it right up to there. And then, if you watch me, I'm going to blend it in with that dark gray because this highlight goes up. Okay, that sets us up for the dark gray around it. I just kind of blended that a bit better with my dark gray. And now I'm going to go right along that outline. And fill it in with the dark gray. And in fact, we even have some more highlights along here that we'll get in a little bit. So I'll go in with a bit of white, pull that highlight out again because I'm covering it up a little too much. And also on this muzzle area, bit of highlight there too. Don't judge it yet. This is the ugly phase. We are definitely still in that phase. Those touch-ups will help it so much. And adding the other colors around it. Okay, so let's go in with, still working on that darker value first. I'm going to work to the right of the right eye. I'm going to add a little bit of white to that because of the light hitting it. It is creating a bit of a reflection, so it's not really a dark color. It's a little bit lighter. And once again, don't worry about making your patch work identical to mine. This fur is not symmetrical. It's very uneven. Okay, so I'm going to work up. And now I'm going with my dark gray as I work down along here, okay? So I just made a line, working down along the right side of the face now with my dark gray. I can actually switch brushes. I don't need to use a liner brush to fill in such a large area, and I can go in with my cat's tongue brush for that. So I just switched to my size 8 cat's tongue brush. No need to suffer with a small little brush to fill in such a large area. The only issue here is I'm going to use the point of this brush to create that fur texture, which is now going to the right. That direction has changed. And so I'm positioning my brush where only the point is touching my canvas to get that short fur texture over top the bandana. So now I'm going to move back to that brush, my smaller detail brush, and fill the little bit of white I have left over. And we want these areas to be symmetrical. Let's see. Mine's looking a little lopsided on the right, so maybe I'll pull a little bit of the left side down. The whiskers will help a little bit, break that up a little bit too. Man, if you step back, it looks awesome. It's coming together. All right, still going with our dark gray, and I'm going to work up the right side now. I'm leaving a gap right here for another patch of that orange tan color. Plus it separates that area from the orange background. So if you run into a problem where you have a multicolored pet and it's orange against orange, if it's a calico or a very uneven patchy fur like this, you can just add a bit of dark gray or dark brown to separate it, and it still looks accurate. Okay, so what I did was I left a little bit of a gap because of Henry's pocket is that pocket of on the ears. And so I just left a little open gap right there. And now draw a line on the other side. Like that. And we'll fill that in with a gray and a wee bit. Okay, so right here. I'm thinking. I think actually, because of how little of the tan we have on the right side, I am going to fill that in with dark gray with my Ketstone brush. We're going to get a little bit bigger, and we can paint the colored fur over top this area once it's dried, because there's such a little amount of it. In fact, I'm covering this up, guys. That little gap, I'm covering that up too. And I'll work up. And I will bring this up to about here. I'm going to draw a line of my dark gray to about there, because I can't start layering fur over top that ear unless I've filled in the inside of it. So that leaves us working on the ear next with our dark gray first. I will work on the outer edge of the inside, so the edge of the inside of this ear, with my round brush. But leaving, oh no, the other ear has a bit of tan, so we won't have to leave a gap. Yeah, Kathy, I'm right there with you. Because sometimes it's not as exciting if you paint it a second time. Like, it's more thrilling when you're working with a brand new subject or new composition, you know, but you're right. How are we going to improve on a certain animal if we're not repainting those paintings that we've attempted? That's how we can really improve. Yeah, believe it or not, but I used to not like drawing cats or painting cats. That was my least favorite thing to paint, but I said, I really want to get good at this. And so I just kept trying and trying, and now it's my favorite thing to paint. It was not before whatsoever. I just didn't like how sharp everything was. Sharp ears, sharp eyes, sharp nose, petite, tiny nose, you know, but now it is my favorite thing to paint. And who would have thought? Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of focus on the right side so we don't get too overwhelmed by all these markings we're leaving out and all that stuff. So let us paint the inside of that ear. I'm going to add violet. We will need violet. And we're going to make a magenta. And it's going to be gray. So it's, oh, this is so fun because we're actually going to add a wash or a glaze over top this. Okay, so first I'm going to mix up the violet with permanent red. and white. So that's violet, permanent red, and white. And just by adding that smallest amount of violet, so it's not just a red, and making sure we add enough white to it, that is why we can add this over top that red background. So you don't want this to be too dark. You want this to be pretty light. So add more white if you need to. We're going to use the glazing technique over this, believe it or not, once it's dry. Okay, so that should be good. I'll use my cat's tongue brush for that. Again, going back to my clean, damp cat's tongue brush, and I'll just paint in the entire inner ear. All right, and I'll just go up into that line. And I want to be careful. I can get into the point area of that ear and work it down without cutting into that border of dark gray. You know, we have a little bit of dark gray at the top of that eye, that ear. So here I am holding my cat's tongue brush, and while I'm here, I'm just going to paint that in. Just bring it down a little bit more. So we have a little bit of this on the opposite side of that pocket, Henry's pocket. Right here, I'm talking about right there. And I didn't bring it down all the way because I actually want to do this, bring it up. And we're gonna leave it. We're actually gonna leave it. I'm trying to think of what's the smartest thing. So that doesn't dry out. We should probably do that ear, and then we can work back here. So let's do that. And we'll not forget about those top markings. So here we go, back with my size 1 round brush and our dark gray, and we'll do the exact same thing, except here on this ear, we have a pocket, like a little bit of the yellow tan, orange, yellow marking there. So that pocket is on the left side now. I'm just going to draw a line for where I'm going to stop with my magenta on the inside of the ear. Oh, I like that. That's a good idea. Do-over, like do-over month where you redo paintings, Bonnie. I like that idea. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, leave a bit of a gap, and then back down with dark gray. Yeah, I've never had that. That is a really, really good idea. Oh, welcome, Kathy. Yeah, don't we all? I agree with you. I'm glad you could make it. Okie dokie. I'm going to bring this down a little bit on the left. And then we'll go in with our magenta. Ooh, that is not very washed out. I'm gonna need to refresh my water soon. It's very dark. Okay, so clean, damp cat's tongue brush to fill in this left ear. Now you'll see if you look at the reference photo, Masterclass students, there's actually markings inside the ear. I left those out. I didn't want to make things too overwhelming for beginners. But that's definitely, to do that, you would actually, what I recommend is you would blend them into this magenta inside the ear. It's unbelievable, right? Seeing markings inside the ear, but some of these animals, their skin is marked like their fur, so the inside of the ear is that way too. And so that's what you would do. You would just blend those colors into this magenta. See how I'm getting inside this pocket here? Great. Okay. Now I'm doing this because I'm adding the raw sienna and yellow ochre to my paint palette, because we're going to start adding some of those markings in. But we still have more dark gray to paint in too. But sometimes this can help us kind of get the big picture when we paint these in, because right now our cat looks a little odd, right? Because it's got no other markings in there. So first let's mix up our colors. So I want to mix up, oh, I need more white. I'm going to put white right here. First I'm going to mix up in its own pile yellow ochre and raw sienna. Okay, so that's yellow ochre and raw sienna. Running out of space here. I want to make sure you can see it. So I'll pick that up and put that right there. And then I'll pull some of that in with some white. Okay, so that's yellow ochre, raw sienna right there. And then I pulled in some white in with those colors in a separate pile. And honestly, for some of these areas like here, we're going to do one stroke at a time, one first strand at a time. I'm going to use this one instead. So with the darker color that we just applied, the 2-0 liner brush, and a small amount of paint on my brush, I'm going to add individual strands with gaps in between for that black to show right above the eye. The direction really matters here. It's going out and to the right. And normally I would more fill in an area when it's a really big patch, but when it's a much smaller one, this is what I would do. This actually climbs up that triangle we made with the dark gray. We also have some coming to the right of that eye, very more patchy there. And then with a bit lighter, so I'm going to this lighter version and doing that where we left that gap, but we covered it up with black. Doing a few strands right there. I bring this over a bit more. I'm bringing these over to the left more. I'll go in with that lighter color right here, blending it over top some of those strands and making some new ones with this lighter color. Okay. Okay. Oh, this is going to be so fun. We're going to add the wash technique next. This is the start of our tans and light tans, but now we're going to actually mix up a gray, but with added water to it. Oh, I dropped my brush. And in order to do that, I keep saying a glaze. In order to do a glaze, we can't actually do that with our palette knife because we have to take water from our cup and add it to our mixture. So I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to use my size 1 round brush and just set aside in its own pile. Where do I put it? I'm going to put it right here. Can you see this? And now I'll add some water to it. Okay. See how I'm picking up some water? This is going to be what I'll use for my glaze. I don't want it sopping wet when I apply this. So I have a clean damp brush and I'm picking up this really diluted gray. And I'm just going to spread it around now on the inside. Okay, this is our glaze that we're applying to the inside and bottom area of this right ear. I'm even going to pull in more water so this really becomes lighter on this area. There's no gray that I'll take to there, only on the inner left of this right ear. I can do some smudging, dabbing with my hand if I need to. This is just creating that really subtle shadow for the inner ear hairs that we'll be applying. So it's going to be darkest inside this ear and below. Oh, I got some green on there. And if you really do need to, go in with your magenta. You can, if you brought it out too far, you can do that. Or you can add less water to it if you need that. And just pull in more of that dark gray to darken up the left side. You got options here. And just so I don't forget about that little gap, it's actually more of this color, not a gray. I'm going to add some dark gray to it. So it's going to be a little bit of dark gray with this color. And I'll just fill in that little pocket right there. All right, you ready to do the other side? We already have our color. And we're just going to apply that now on the opposite side. So on the right side of the left ear. Do a little smudgy smudge. Push that paint around. Even add some more water to it. That can help you blend that out. Even get some of that magenta there. And going in with a little bit less diluted paint for the inside and bottom area of the left ear. We're setting the base, preparing the base for the inner ear hairs. I'll even get this area gray too, okay? I'm pulling some of this paint over to that pocket where I don't want it super light. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I think, sorry if I'm confusing you guys between the wash and the glaze, but this is just preparing a really nice shaded area for those hairs. And once we add a bit more of the dark gray here, then we're going to start adding our dark gray lines up over top that area. And that's really going to help it look realistic. Okay, so I'm actually not going to use my cat's tongue brush. I'm going to use my liner brush because we have some highlights to paint. So, dark gray in my size 1 round brush, and I'm going to start painting this gap in. Adding more wet paint in that area, and then blending it with some white for the light reflections. Not going down too far because we have more of our orange in that area. Okay, so here I go with my white. So the fur is kind of going like this. We're going to have some strands that we bring up over top the background soon. But this is interesting in that the direction kind of changes like this. Added a bit more white. And now I'll go back with my dark gray. I'm going to bring this gap down a little bit more because we have more orange on this side than that side. So for this, I will leave that white. While we have our dark gray and some of our light gray, I'm adding some white into this. I want to make sure I get some light gray right here. See how I'm blending that? So straight in the middle and then out like that on the sides. Okay. I'll give you guys a bit more time. I know some of you are working on that. And then the next step will be with our liner brush and the dark values. And we're going to start pulling our strands over top these inner ear hairs, or over top these ears, and then over top this background. All right, guys, so here we go with my liner brush and our dark gray. And ever so carefully, I'm gonna start pulling some of these dark strands like this over top that inner ear area. So now on this area, the strands are going, oh, animal fur. Strands are going like that, but here they're more vertical. These strands are a bit more vertical. I want to get rid of any lines like here. I don't want these lines to show. So these first strands are going to help break that up. Okay, and real small brush strokes here. We are going to create the little strands that go over top the background. Carefully, fine, thin lines, and climbing that ear, but they're very short, the ones that climb the ear. And on this side, the strands are that way. But then they come up. And I won't go up too higher than that because that's actually where the marking is. Little by little, we're going to get this little by little. We have a little bit of our fur on the tip of this ear. Both ears too. Oh, my music is not wanting to behave. Okay, so let's continue on with, we're going to start working on the markings now. I think that's where we're going to work. We'll do the inner ear hairs when we do the whiskers, but let's work while we have this color. We don't want it to dry. Okay, so I got my size 1 round brush, and we're going to start with this color again with our yellow ochre and raw sienna. And I'm going to fill in this white. You know what I did? I actually want to switch colors. I'm going to blend into that with our lighter color. We're going to start with the lighter color. I'm going to blend into that. It's really okay if you have some of that blended, but the rest of it is going to be lighter. So I'm going to fill in this white and move over to the left. Direction of the fur is going that way. So with these larger markings, we're going to have to cut into it to thin it out and refine it with our dark gray around it. So I'm actually going to not paint that whole thing because I'm going to switch to this raw sienna and yellow ochre and create a little line comes out from the left of that eye. See a little bit of the tabby cat, orange tabby markings in this. I wonder if it was like a calico and a orange tabby that had babies. And I'll wash off my brush and move to the lighter color again. Now that's kind of pushing it right here because of how light this is and how light that is. So I'm going to carefully bring a little bit of this brown down to about there. That's the raw sienna and yellow ochre. I'm going to paint that patch in, okay? And that's lighter, so we're going to go in with our lighter version of this tan right here. I let it climb that ear with some lines to break up the dark gray and the dark gray up there too. Instead of just making it a block of paint, I wanted to make it work with the dark gray. Yeah, a little too close, right? Too close in color and value. And now for this area that's been bothering me, I want to cover up that. And what I'll do first is I'll work with inside that nostril with this darker raw sienna and yellow ochre, and to the left of the nose, and down, and then I'll go in with my lighter colors. I'm gonna need to add actually a bit of that because of how strong that black is underneath it, where I was trying to map out where this marking was. And don't worry, we'll refine this with our dark gray. We will definitely do that. I'll go back to our darker raw sienna and yellow ochre underneath on the chin and on darkest part right in here. And then I'll work down, and as I work down, see how I'm doing that? As I work down, I'll pull in our light value. But not all the way out because we have really cute little white and dark markings on the outside. Okay, and so for that, I'm gonna mix up a light gray, very light gray, okay guys, because this is actually representing the white fur. So a light gray, and I'm propping my hand up here, and I'm gonna now paint the rest of the white with this light gray and fur texture that cuts over top that bandana once more. That same color, okay, that same color, I actually added a bit of white to it, is gonna frame this bottom right lip. And with lines that cut both, yeah, I'm just gonna focus on the lines that cut into that dark gray. I don't want to make it too furry because that'll take away from the whiskers. We're going to add lots of the texture from the whiskers. So I'm just going to cut up with into that dark gray here. But as I turn the corner around here, I'm going to pull in more dark gray because this is just creating a bit more form around the muzzle. This stands out. It's facing us, and it's forward more than the right side of this muzzle, which is why I'm just adding a hint of dark gray to it. So I washed off my brush and I'm going to go in with my raw sienna and yellow ochre. I'm actually going to start that on the bottom. And as I work up, I'm going to switch to create more of that highlight, the light hitting the front of the face with the lighter version, our light value. In fact, it gets so light, I might even go in with some white. We'll see. We'll see if I need to add white here. There's little patchy areas around here. I'm going to do that when we get closer to the end. That's when we'll add those small details, those small fine lines. Okay. Going back to the raw sienna and yellow ochre mixture to fill in this gap here. And I know we have that little nose to paint in, so we'll do that actually now. We'll do that. We have our dark grays. And so for that, I'm going to mix up a medium gray. So that's our dark gray with white. I like to start in small areas with the medium value first and then adjust the value to create that form. So here I go, filling in the whole nose, very dark nose with a medium gray. Carefully around that line indent at the bottom. Okay, and now I'm going to actually wash that brush off and move to my liner brush. I'll add the low lights first, blend that in with our dark gray. Like right around here, around the nostrils, we're going to have darkness. Just blending that dark gray ever so carefully around the nostrils and on the bottom of the nose, as well as the left and right, too much paint, of the top of the nose. I want to shape that nose a bit better as we're kind of wrapping up this nose area. I want to make sure it's proportional. I'll get around the nostrils too. The lightest part is right at the front where that light source is hitting it. And this line indent comes up a little bit. And I'm going to go back to that medium gray and do a little bit more blending of all that dark gray I just added. And then I'll go in with my light values, going in with white into this light gray, and a little dab of highlight there on the left side, top of the nose, little dab of highlight on the right side, and then I'll make even more adjustments and more contrast with the dark gray. So I'll make the dark areas a bit darker. Then I'll have to make the light areas a bit lighter. And it'll come together. Cats have such cute little tiny noses. Tiny, tiny. You know what we have? We have the smallest bit of a highlight. I just mixed up white. I want this actually quite dark, but just ever so slightly lighten up the top of the nose here. Littlest bit, not a lot. And while I'm there, I want to pull out this dark shadow on the right side of the nose. I just want to pull it out and up with our dark gray. On the bridge of the nose area. Okay. And while we're working on our dark gray, we're also going to add a little bit of the dark gray that we have on the chin. So that little, with my liner brush, this is the smallest little marking right here, a little bit of dark gray. Just using short little lines, just like that. Now before our paint dries, this color right here. Okay, so this is my liner brush. The one I was working was my round brush. So my size one, oh, well, actually, nope. We're gonna work on this area, but I don't need my liner brush. I need something a bit thicker because we have more to cover. My size 8 cat's tongue brush is what I'm using with the yellow ochre and raw sienna. And I'm gonna fill in the entire white we have left on the body. Including my sides. And underneath this bandana is lots of white fur, which is why we have a bit of white peeking out. I'll add a bit of raw sienna to this area here, so it's not as light. It gets a bit darker there just to break up that background. But then go back to this yellow ochre and raw sienna right here. I'm going to leave that there so that I can add the white fur. Do the same on this side. How are we doing, guys? You doing okay? Oh, thanks, Kimber. Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of colors, right? It's like every inch of our paint palette is gonna be used. Excellent. Oh, how fun. And now it's gonna be back to, this is where we're gonna add the liner brush with white to make a light gray. And I'll fill that in this little white gap we have, and that'll be finally covering up all the white of our canvas, but we still got more details, lots more details and refining yet to do. I'm going to go in, because of the light source, I'm going to go in with this lighter value and just add a bit of this by the bandana, just underneath it, blending a bit of that into the color we just added of the raw sienna and yellow ochre. And I'll do the same coming up from here. Just more texture and more of that lighting. But not all the way up. I want this area to be a bit more dark. Okay. Let's add those details to the eye, shall we? We have our light gray mixed up. I'm gonna add more white into that light gray. And with a steady hand, let's add that highlight. Okay, so on the right side, it's right over top that pupil, right here. On the left side, we have it more on the right top side of that left pupil and a little bit over top the iris. Just like that. I'm gonna add a little one right here too. This actually goes up a little higher. And I think I'm gonna need to go back to my dark gray to touch that pupil up. Touch it up, yep, so I can fix that highlight because I brought the highlight down a little too far. That highlight is almost coming off the top of this one right here. There, that's so much better. That's what it needed. Excellent. Now we have a bit more shading on this side, and why not let us use a bit of that glaze, that watered down, oh, I still have it, that watered down dark gray. I'm going to do it over the top of this eye, just to give it a bit more shading. Excellent. The glazing is so nice because you don't have to get rid of the details you've already added. It just tints it or darkens it. So you can add a different color this way, or you could just darken up the area. And then with a very clean brush, damp brush, I'm going to spread that around. Do a little bit on the right side too. Make sure you step back. I'm going to have to step back and look. Good. Oh, it's coming along. As I step back and look, I'm seeing that we need to pull out that highlight a bit more than we have it. So we have our dark gray. I'm going to pull in a bit more dark gray into this light gray. Ooh, even more. Right along here, it's lighter as it connects to this highlight to the right of the nose. And I'll just blend that back up again with my dark gray. Good. And now for the cutting in. So this is where we go in with any kind of detail brush. I'm using my size 1 liner brush. And we just cut in around where we see some of the white, but also making sure we get that fur texture that we really want to see around where we add those kind of those blobs of color instead of layering it over top like that. So with my dark gray, I'm going to cut in, do a little bit of separating some of these areas too, and then we'll go back in with these colors and really bring out the fur strands. My music stopped. Even over top the muzzle. Okay, and then we'll go back with our other color. And not only will we extend out these lines over top the dark gray, but we'll also add some more single lines over top the dark gray, like I'm doing right now. So there's like little sporadic single lines here and there. Don't want to miss these ones down here, which is actually a different color, or not a different color, the darker color of the yellow ochre and raw sienna. Right here. These strands are kind of going like this. They're almost like shaped in a circle. They're very short. See how I'm doing this? Just random strands and going over the work we've already done. I see a little bit over here, really short, fine ones, definitely over top here. Can't go wrong with this fur. You can really place it anywhere, and it looks right. Just trying to get those fur strands thin enough is the key, right? Trying to make sure that they're fine and thin. But boy, does it help so much. Making it look so lifelike. By the way, I'm using my 2/0 liner brush to do this. I don't think I could use any other brush. Well, maybe I don't need that. Hey, if you don't like it, easy way to get rid of it is just to paint over it with dark gray. I'm going to bring up this area a little bit more. Kind of looks a little wonky with the dark gray and this marking right there. But I still want that gray there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring that over, get it a bit darker, and bring the dark gray down. Now what it needs is a little bit more shaping of that light gray. I'm just going to grab some that's already on my paint palette. It's too light. Going to add more dark gray to it. I want this to come down at an angle more than I have it. And getting that dark gray to blend into it at the bottom. So I'm back with my dark gray. My dark gray is drying. I'm going to have to mix up some more. Mixing up more dark gray because it's not coming off my brush because it's so dry. So I'm going back with my dark gray. There we go. Much better. Excellent. I just want to add the tiniest bit of light gray, 2 little dots, almost like we did for the eyes. Over top the nose. I want it to be not as strong. There, I used my finger to help smudge that so it's not as strong. And are you guys ready for those inner ear hairs? We're going to work on that next. I'm actually going to use the same color I have here, but with added white. Okay, so it's a very light gray. And ever so carefully, I'm going to hold my hand as I'm doing this. I'm going to start on the right side, working from this area up and out. Up and out like that. I can get away with like 2 or 3 until I have to start getting more paint. The tricky part is actually the next step, which is going back over those same lines with an even lighter version of the light gray. So get that hand steady as best you can, because then we're going to go over those lines to lighten them up over top that very light magenta and pull them out even more so that the part inside the ear, deepest inside the ear, is darker, but the hair strands that are sticking out, exposed to more light, are getting more of a light gray. Curving down a little bit at the bottom, like that. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Little tricky for righties. And it gets shorter at the top, but a little bit longer at the bottom. This is where the fluid titanium white comes in handy because it's so thin, the paint isn't so thick and it doesn't make your bristles so heavy. This is where it's really helpful. That's the Golden brand titanium white. Oops. There, just wiped it right off. Now the ones that are a little tricky, we're gonna do those next, is like 2 or 3 on the above the eye, on the left and right sides. So take your time. I'm gonna start from the top and work down, I think. That's what I think I'll do from these top ones. And we always have dark gray that we can cut in around it, dark gray. We have this whole area of dark gray around it, and that's really simple. See, like that's too thick, so I'll go in with dark gray and thin it out. Oop. I just barely made it. I was gonna go up a little higher, but I didn't. Then I would have to mix up my other background color, which I kind of don't want to have to do. If I don't have to, I'm gonna have to redo this top part. Okay. And now for the right side. There's like one bristle on this brush that I'm painting from, like one bristle. That's how thin these are. Okay, good. Oh, thanks for watching, Kathy. Thank you. Excellent. And you ready? The last thing is those whiskers right coming out from here, coming off the side of the canvas, and same with that side, okay? I'm gonna add a little bit more white to these. They are thicker. These whiskers are thicker than these ones and the inner ear hairs. So that's helpful for us, right? There's real short ones curving down around over top here, and much longer, thicker ones coming out like that. Some are inside, they're coming out from the white fur. Some are coming out from the dark gray fur. Oh, mix it up. Some of the whiskers are overlapping. They're not evenly spaced out, like, honestly, they're not perfectly spaced out how I'm painting them. Now for the left side. I'm actually going in further than this gray line, okay? I'm not going straight up to that gray line. I'm going to go in further. That gray line was just as a helpful guide for us. And adding lots of whiskers around it will help get rid of that line and make it less obvious. I'm actually going with solid white carefully over top the whiskers out here. So you can see them better. You could even go in with a dark gray over top that. I've done that before, where so that you don't lose these whiskers, you can even go in with dark gray and you'd never notice. Like it looks right. I honestly think I like this one so much. I like this one a little bit better than the Babsu live painting I painted just a little while ago. If you missed that, that's of a tuxedo kitty, another live painting we did of Babsu. Oh, that's a little thick, but that's okay. I know what colors what we used for that. If you guys get too thick around the bandana, you know what we used? The bright aqua green and the sky blue for that. And cutting in with this color around it will fix it right up. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. It was so fun, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to see your creations. You can either post that, send it via email to my email or in the private masterclass community. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye. You're welcome, Kinder.